Hey guys! How are all of you beautiful people doing? I hope you all are having a great day. And yes, this is the next part of I Became Shikamaru Nara. Where the world that once seemed fictional is now real. Shinobi, Chakra. It's all so close. After being reborn in the body of a deceased child, the hero has a second chance to live this life anew. Having found a new home and clan, he will have a long and difficult journey. But the object that was found in the past and changed his fate is still with him. Now, with this power, he will follow the path of the strongest shinobi. So without any delay, let's start the series. Scratching his chin, the boy thought. A pedigree can be helpful, especially a chakra uplifting pedigree. But the points will not be enough. I suppose you should first look at the rest of the exchange options. After these thoughts, Shikamaru closed the section on pedigrees and genoms, opening the section Techniques. Techniques. Main types. Ninjutsu. Wind element. Wind release, Storm Palm 10 fate points. Wind release, Dust Cloud Technique 30 fate points. Wind release, Wind Cutter Technique 20 fate points. Release of Fire. Fire release, Flame Shot 20 destiny points. Fire release, Great Fireball Technique 30 fate points. Water element. Water release, Water Hail 30 fate points. Water release, Water Stream 20 fate points. Water release, Water Shuriken 10 destiny points. Ninjutsu had hundreds of different techniques in all the main 5 elements, as well as general techniques that did not use the element. It will take Shikamaru at least several hours to read them all. What's remarkable is that the list contains special techniques that can be used by owners of improved genoms. Therefore, in addition to the main elements, in the ninjutsu section, there are others. Taijutsu. 100 meter strike 5 fate points. 1000 meter strike 10 fate points. Millennium of Death 1 point of fate. The list of taijutsu was also quite impressive, though slightly smaller than that of ninjutsu. But there were also techniques that the guy had never heard of. Genjutsu. Leaf Style Willow 20 destiny points. Illusion of the Binding Pole 20 destiny points. Landslide Genjutsu 10 fate points. The list of genjutsu was even smaller, mainly the list included special techniques that only rare shinobi with great compatibility with the yin element could use. But also, there was a rather voluminous list of genjutsu for the owner of the Sharingan. But it was impossible to buy these techniques without the possession of this dojutsu, as well as parts of ninjutsu techniques that require special elements. Subtypes. Fuinjutsu. Concluding Technique 10 fate points. Unsealing Technique 5 fate points. Fire Seal Method 100 destiny points. Ioryon Ninjutsu. Chakra Scalpel 20 destiny points. Mystic Palm Technique 30 destiny points. Dead Soul Technique 20 fate points. Kinjutsu. 8 Gates 300 fate points. Akita 30 points of fate. Dead Puppet 20 fate points. There were many subtypes, ranging from Bukajutsu to various hidden. The Fuinjutsu list was quite long, and Kinjutsu was the smallest. It even included the 8 Heavenly Gate technique, although it could have been on the Taijutsu list. The prices were quite good, which was not surprising. Still, techniques can be learned, but pedigrees were impossible to obtain. Of course, there were some jutsu on the lists, which were decent, but they were rare and the conditions for their study were not easy. So the price was well justified. 10,000 glasses could buy several dozen techniques. Unfortunately, that didn't make much sense. Having a bunch of techniques won't make a ninja stronger, Shikamaru knew that of course. Better to focus on one or more, especially in his situation. There are a few jutsu worth investing in, but not right now. I'm still a kid, so I should probably focus on my clan's techniques and body development. I have a lot of respect for Taijutsu masters, so I definitely won't neglect the development of physical ability. I still vividly remember Guy's fight against Madara. This fight was one of the best in the manga. Although, of course, the one who chose the path of Taijutsu must train more than any other ninja and have great perseverance and will. So this path will be very interesting. Difficulties make people stronger, Sean knew this firsthand. What he possessed was a strong will and tenacity. In a past life, he had to go through many difficulties, which could not pass without a trace. The man's mind was hardened in gunfights and fierce battles. Even if it was incomparable to the ninja world, it still wasn't easy. Raising an entire group and paving the way to power in the underworld is not an easy task, especially in a world where gangs have long shared power and dominated for decades. Of course, by the end of his life, Sean was too keen on his search, but the accumulated experience and developed spirit remained. Starting a new life, he was completely ready to fight for a place in this world. In the past, he studied artifacts for more than just fun. Sean wanted to find something important, something that could change his life. First of all, he wanted to gain strength. Although he could give orders to many people, this was not the power he was aiming for. And he did not need strength to gain more power and wealth, he just wanted to learn more about the world and finally find his own way. With many subordinates and huge sums of money, Sean completely lost interest in life. All this was unimportant, probably, every person wanted to find his goal and go towards it no matter what. Getting out of bed, Shikamaru walked to the window and looked up at the blue sky. White clouds moved forward carelessly, creating many bizarre shapes that eventually crumbled and floated away into the distance. Smiling, Shikamaru nodded. In this world there are no shackles holding back people, there is no limit to development, all that is needed is to stubbornly move forward. Once in the ninja world, Sean finally saw his way. In the past, what seemed impossible was now right in front of him. Now, he could finally evolve forever seek his unknown goal. Maybe, the goal, in constant development. Smiling inwardly, Shikamaru returned to reality and began to ponder his initial path. Now it was important to get on your feet correctly, to lay strong foundations for further development. In the manga, Shikamaru was distinguished not by his strong jutsu, but by his very capable intellect. Of course he was an experienced shinobi, but not one of those who could really be called very strong ninja. Yes, I should definitely focus on Taijutsu and the clan's techniques, this is the smartest option right now. The sooner I start developing my body, the better. In the original story, Shikamaru was very lazy, like many in his clan. Be he harder and more ambitious, and he could reach great heights. Thinking about the Nara clan, Shikamaru nodded. I think the third section of the exchange can help with this. After all, I'm a child and probably not genetically predisposed to Taijutsu because of my clan. Thinking about this, Shikamaru immediately opened the last section of the exchange, pills and elixirs. Pills and elixirs. Elixirs for strengthening and strengthening. Elixir of strengthening chakra channels 600 points of fate. Elixir of bone fortification 600 fate points. Elixir of muscle strengthening 600 fate points. Elixir of strengthening the body 1500 fate points. Elixir of Yin release increase by 2.5% 500 fate points. Elixir of Yang release increase by 2.5% 500 fate points. Elixir of Fire release increase by 2.5% 500 fate points. Special elixirs. Elixir of Fortification of Ice release increase by 2.5% 700 fate points. Elixir of Lava release increase by 2.5% 700 fate points. Seeing this sizable list of all sorts of elixirs, Shikamaru nodded glumly. Looking at them, he already had a plan for his development in the coming years, before entering the academy. The elixirs of fortification played an important role in this, although their price was not small. As for special elixirs, it was too early to think about them. Bloodline Enhancement Pill First Move, x 200% second, x 100%, third, x 50%, fourth, x 25%, fifth, x 12.5%, sixth, x 6.25%, seventh, x 3.125%. 2000 fate points. Example, if the bloodline of Nara is 50%, after taking the first pill, the strength of the bloodline will increase by 200%, that is, 50% will become 250%, after the second pill, 350%, after the third, 400%, and so on. Abilities of the Nara clan directly affect the control of the Yin element. 5% of the strength gives a strengthening in the control of Yin by 1%. So 50% of the bloodline strength gives 10% improvement in the control of Yin. If you increase the strength of the Nara bloodline to 400%, then you can strengthen Yin control, up to 80%. Pill of Emotional Outburst 5000 points of fate. Chakra Recovery Pill 100 Chakra 10 fate points. Pill to cleanse the body from toxins 1000 points of fate. Pill of Chakra Storage Expansion increase by 1000 5000 fate points. After going through the list of all the pills, Shikamaru let out a long breath. Even elixirs could not match this. These pills were truly divine weapons. Get one hidden village like this and they would keep it like a treasure, especially the first of the bloodline boosting pills. Just one move of this bloodline and the current Shikamaru with 32% of the bloodline strength will immediately go to 232%. This is not just an increase, this is a huge leap forward. Its Yin compatibility will probably surpass 60%. It is not surprising that the price of these miracle drugs was much higher than the techniques. Still, the techniques could be obtained, but pills are probably impossible to get in the world. Speaking of elixirs. Remembering something, Shikamaru closed exchange and said, "Tasks." Immediately, a list of all tasks appeared before the young man's eyes. Tasks. Active. Blood restriction. New pedigree. The power of Genin. Along the way of Taijutsu. On the way to ninjutsu. Along the genjutsu path. Another story. Completed. From scratch. Unfulfilled. After seeing the list of several active missions and the rewards for them, Shikamaru already had some ideas. There were many tasks, but some of them were too difficult to complete. Although, there were those that he could complete right now, and doing one task, with the points he earned, he could complete another. Maybe this is some kind of loophole or just a lucky coincidence. Smiling internally, the guy began to look through the awards. Jobs was the last command in the system. For the rest, Shikamaru must learn everything himself. Only about status, exchange and tasks he received information. The tasks were very important, because the only way to earn the so-called fate points was to complete them. Already, Shikamaru has received a rather large list of tasks. But this was only the beginning. From the information received, he knew that tasks would still be issued. But the criteria for obtaining them were a little unclear. Once in this world and having completed the complete merging of the soul with the body, Shikamaru unconsciously completed his first task, from scratch completed. Reward, 10,000 points of fate, the main scroll of Taijutsu, elixir of body strengthening. Usually, after completion, the award was not immediately issued. This was necessary, since the situation could be unforeseen, and not the task completed on time and the award given out could interfere. So after the completion, the reward had to be picked up independently. If the task has not yet been completed, then although the reward for it can be viewed, it is, of course, impossible to receive. The same goes for hidden rewards. Each task has special fulfillment conditions, which are hidden. By completing them, you can get an increased reward. Shikamaru did not receive much information about this. The only thing he knew was that by fulfilling the hidden conditions, the usual reward would be increased, but how much and how is unknown. Shikamaru did not yet have unfulfilled tasks, and there was only one completed, so he did not hesitate and immediately decided to take his earnings. Yet he did not know how this process would go. How he will get the scroll and where the elixir will go, and that was quite important, so it was worth finding out right away. This was not mentioned at all in the initial instructions. In addition, having looked through the entire list of tasks, he knew that there were those that he could complete right now using the initial reward and thus multiply his points. If everything works out, then some plans may change. Focusing on the task accomplished and its reward, Shikamaru didn't feel much, but just as he was about to repeat the process, the air next to him quivered and a strange reddish light slowly escaped from his body. This light quickly changed its shape and turned into a small bottle right before our eyes. Shikamaru instinctively extended his hand to the floating object. He jerked slightly and easily fell into the boy's hand. At the same moment, a message sounded in Shikamaru's head. Basic Taijutsu Scroll, Information Transmission. Immediately after that, Shikamaru began to see double in his eyes, and then, information began to fill his head. It was so fast that he didn't even understand what was happening. Just a couple of seconds and the cloudiness has passed. Exhaling heavily, Shikamaru muttered. A little unpleasant. The transmission of information went directly to the brain, so it could cause dizziness. Even so, Shikamaru now knew exactly the entire contents of the Master Taijutsu Scroll. Although the basic Taijutsu Scroll did not appear due to this strange energy from the air as an elixir, but the fact that it was transferred directly to the brain was even better to some extent. After all, it could take time to study the scroll, but now, Shikamaru knew for sure every detail written in it. Of course, now the scroll cannot be passed on to others for study, but using memory, Shikamaru could easily rewrite everything. Still, there was not much information in the scroll. These were simple instructions for training Taijutsu, a few recipes for herbal medicine and training exercises. Even if he could have conveyed them, it was no use now. His only allies at the moment are of course the Nara clan, and possibly Kimichi. But there was no point in Shikamaru giving the scroll to any of them, it probably wasn't that special. Still, the clan Shinobi probably have something similar, especially the Nara and Akimichi clan, recipes for different medicines, they should definitely have. And explaining the presence, even of such a simple scroll, will not be easy, although not impossible. The scroll will wait, thinking about his glasses of fate, a small icon appeared before the boy's eyes. It was a disc with a round sum of 10,000 inside. After taking a good look at this disc, Shikamaru chuckled wryly. So that's the point. I knew that it's not a matter of gods and luck. It looks like it's you. Smiling at his friend the disc with symbols, Shikamaru even felt a little easier. Before that, he did not understand his situation a little, and the rebirth seemed too strange and inexplicable, but now, although it was just as incomprehensible, he at least had a small explanation for the situation. Fate, Points of fate. The law of fate. All this is not easy. Perhaps the artifact that I managed to find, not just a small disk with information, as I previously thought. Now it looks like some kind of artifact that can help in rebirth and allows you to establish a connection with fate. Although, how everything works is unclear. But the incomprehensibility of the situation did not bother Shikamaru. On the contrary, he smiled with interest and concentrated again on the object in his hands. He has already checked 2 of the 3 awards, it is time for the last one. Frowning at the small bottle, Shikamaru didn't notice anything special about it. Just a small bottle as long as a thumb, the bottom of which was round and 2 fingers wide. The upper part, which was a long neck, was narrow and slightly thicker than the little finger. Although the bottle was transparent, the liquid had an unpleasant color, dark green with an admixture of brown. The liquid did not look very tasty, but if this is a medicine, then this look is quite understandable. Slightly shaking the bottle, the liquid easily began to move. Nodding, Shikamaru uncorked the small white lid, put his nose against the neck and sniffed. Grimacing slightly, the guy smiled. It smells so-so, but bearable. After a little reflection, Shikamaru swallowed all the liquid without thinking twice. Of course, he had no confidence in such a subject, otherwise he would have delayed acceptance. But if you can't trust something, either throw it away, or take a chance and use it. At the moment, Shikamaru knew for sure that this system could change his life, so it was worth establishing trust and taking the risk of drinking an unknown liquid. As soon as the substance hit his tongue, Shikamaru grimaced and began to drink faster. Fortunately, there were no more than 3 sips, so it was easy to empty the bottle. Sealing the lid and putting the empty bottle aside, Shikamaru twitched and stuck out his tongue, snorted. Well, the taste. I hope the effect is worth it. Reaching out and taking water from the table, Shikamaru immediately took a few sips. Then he made himself comfortable on the bed, closed his eyes and waited. Who knows what the effect would be? If this thing killed him, he was willing to accept it. But abandoning the system and its elixirs with pills was not very wise, he had to take the risk. Of course, it was possible to carry out the experiment on other people, but who knows how they will affect them? What if they are only safe for Shikamaru? This system was too incomprehensible and who knows how it works, so it was worth the risk. Anyway, he is only at the start, in the worst case, the losses are not so big. A couple of seconds after taking it, Shikamaru began to feel some changes in his body. Light warmth began to spread throughout the body and even bring some pleasure. It was even comparable to a slight intoxication, so the guy began to feel light-headed after a while. But, once the pleasant ends. The first minute passed, and a slight dizziness turned into a headache, which slowly began to spread both from the head and from the abdomen. Deep inside the bones, movement began, as if the bones began to saw and gnaw. After a few more seconds, the eyes began to water and hurt, the temperature of the whole body began to rise. The body was heating up faster and faster, and the pain spread deeper, and already gave it to the entire body. But Shikamaru gritted his teeth and endured. He tried not to make a sound, he didn't need witnesses now. He felt that this pain was temporary, and he began to believe much more in the efficacy of this elixir. Hara. The pain increased and Shikamaru felt a burning and tingling sensation with every part of his body. All he could hear now was a strong pulsation that seemed to be emitted throughout his body. With his fists and teeth clenched tighter, he continued to endure the pain. In the past, he faced pain, even this, he endured for the first time. But with all this pain, deep inside, in the muscles, chakra canals, bones, there were very noticeable changes. The muscles and ligaments became stronger and more elastic. The bones and the entire skeleton in general have become much stronger. All organs, vessels, chakra canals have become stronger and changed. One elixir completely changed all the physical parameters of an ordinary child. If any doctor saw such a thing, he would never believe his eyes. Everything that was happening now, even for the Shinobi world, was too surprising. About 5 minutes later, the pain finally began to subside, his body temperature began to drop just as quickly, causing a noticeable steam to emanate from the boy's body. Opening his still watery eyes slightly, Shikamaru exhaled heavily in a wave of steam. After examining himself, he smiled with relief. It looks like everything went well. His entire body was covered in sweat, completely soaking his clothes and sheets. Now he looked like he was caught in a heavy downpour. Otherwise, the special changes were difficult to notice. Shikamaru looked the same as before, except for wet and reddened skin from the temperature. Of course, these were only external signs, but inside, his body changed noticeably. Moving his hands, Shikamaru muttered in surprise. Still it worked. A little strange sensation, but the body felt more comfortable. Deftly jumping off the bed, Shikamaru chuckled. Ha, such ease, amazing. After waving his arms and legs a little, the guy finally stopped, noticing something unusual. All of Shikamaru's clothes were in a terrible state, as was the bed he was sitting on. The most problematic was the smell. He was so unpleasant and harsh that it was watery in his eyes. The beds can be changed, it's not so scary. The problem is in my clothes. Glumly examining his outfit, the guy quickly began to undress. The grey jersey, black breeches and everything else quickly remained on the floor. Looking at his wet clothes and his unpleasant-smelling body, Shikamaru chuckled wryly. The situation is actually funny, but it will be difficult to explain such profuse sweating. Although you can blame everything on your illness. But this is not an option. I'm not going to undergo tests or something else. I don't need another month in the ward. We need to come up with some kind of plan. With a crooked grin looking at the exit from the room, Shikamaru could only shake his head. There were no options, although the situation was crazy, but the clothes needed fresh. I can't believe that something like this happened at all. Can I just say that the clothes were stolen? Shaking his head, Shikamaru muttered. Not an option, at least it is worth washing, the sweat is terribly smelly. It's not like the smell of a child, I'm afraid even a nurse, when she comes in here, may not stand it. Well, it's absurd. Exhaling, Shikamaru calmly walked to the door. There were no options, you need to solve this problem. Opening the ward door, the guy looked around. It seems clean. Although, who am I kidding, as if I can hide from the Shinobi. I will hope for luck. Returning to the room, Shikamaru walked to the window and opened it completely. Next, he lifted his clothes and pulled the wet sheet off the bed. Then, he quickly swapped the beds and turned the mattress over to somehow hide what had happened. After looking around and making sure that there were no people around, he quickly began to squeeze things out the open window. Quickly finishing everything, he put on his clothes again. Although she was not in the best condition, but so much better than being naked. With the sheet tied over his face and leaving only his eyes, Shikamaru was ready to leave. Remaining in the ward, he only brought his troubles closer. Without closing the window, he returned to the door and left. It will not be difficult to ventilate the room, it will be difficult to escape and sort out your problem. The corridor was clear, so the guy quickly got out and headed for the exit. He already knew roughly the location of the stairs, having examined the building from the window, so it was not difficult to find a way out. If Shikamaru can leave the hospital, then his main problem will be solved. Luckily for him, most of the nurses in the hospital didn't notice him, so the guy was able to walk away unnoticed. Walking away, Shikamaru looked around and chuckled. Yeah, what a shame, as if I did it and try to hide it. I can't believe that this could have happened to me. Under no circumstances should they learn about this shame. Shaking his head with a sigh, the guy went to the village. Then everything was even easier. Although the youth's appearance and smell caused displeased looks, the current Shikamaru would be a person of experience. Having got rid of the shirt and made a bandage out of it, Shikamaru was able to hide his face and hair, and got rid of the rest, except for his pants, of course. It wasn't difficult to steal some money. The problem was that he did not know the prices of clothes. But judging by the food prices, it shouldn't be very big. He hoped that he had stolen enough, it was risky to take more. After all, the Shinobi were in town, and the Konoha police weren't stupid. In the past, Shikamaru would have been confident in his skill, but against the ninja, it could have been completely useless. So I had to guess a good moment to cut Ryo's wallets. Having done this successfully, the rest was not so difficult. Although the seller of clothes was angry at the boy's appearance, he shut up when he saw the money. So Shikamaru quickly bought a replica of his last outfit. After paying and putting everything in the bag, the guy was even able to get hold of a sheet, although this was not necessary. Anyway, he got almost everything he wanted, so having packed everything, he went to the local bathhouse. Calmly paying off the disgruntled old woman, Shikamaru quickly washed and changed. There was no time to enjoy the warm springs, so he quickly hurried back to the hospital. After passing another test of stealth, Shikamaru finally returned to the room. Fortunately, there was no one inside. With a sigh of relief, the guy closed the door. Shikamaru had been away for about 2 hours, so lunch was already close. The nurse warned that the doctor would be arriving in the afternoon for an examination, so Shikamaru arrived on time. Changing the sheet and sniffing, he nodded in relief. 2 hours was quite enough. The smell remained slightly, but it's not scary. The situation turned out to be funny, but if Shikamaru hadn't solved this problem, there could be trouble. There was no better plan, so we had to get out in such a strange way. He definitely did not want to stay in the hospital. Having arrived in this world, Shikamaru wanted to start development as soon as possible. Of course, everything could be solved by itself, but he was not used to relying on luck. Leaning back on the bed, Shikamaru finally relaxed. Just taking the elixir caused so many problems that it's even funny. From now on, you should be careful. My father is an experienced Nara clan shinobi. It will be a huge problem if he finds out that I am not his son, but an imposter. I doubt that after that they will listen to me and we will peacefully solve this problem. I think I should have less contact with my loved ones. It's for my own good. Deciding on this, Shikamaru began to deal with the points of fate. Even though he accepted all of his awards and was ready to train in Taijutsu, he had to deal with the tasks first. Having seen the entire list and conditions for completing some of the tasks last time, Shikamaru already had some ideas. Some tasks were quite doable at the moment. For instance, new pedigree. Obtain the first non-congenital bloodline. Reward, 10,000 points, a special elixir and a special pill. Or blood restriction. Get your first superior genome. Reward, 20,000 points, a scroll of forbidden S-class technique, a pill of purification of chakra channels. Doing the first directly allowed the second to be done. Shikamaru had 10,000 fate points, which could afford to buy a bloodline. He could buy a simple pedigree, for 5,000, and a better one, for 10. Sarutabi's lineage was not a bad one. It's not Uzumaki, but not bad either. In general, having completed this task, Shikamaru could easily return 10,000 points and thus not lose anything. Moreover, for 10,000 it was quite possible to buy a genome and get an additional 20,000 points. Unfortunately, this plan had a significant flaw. Taking a useless genome was not very smart. Strong genomes and cost over 10,000. Spending 10,000 for 20 may seem like a good idea at the moment, but in the future, it can cause problems. Of course, the lava genome should not be so harshly called useless. It was just, in Shikamaru's mind, it was a waste of points. Lava, while destructive, is not a genome worth spending money on. Let's say the speed genome or Shikatsumiyaku were much more interesting. Lava could also be obtained in other ways. The same Roshi was able to awaken this power thanks to his Baijua. But ultimately lost to Kai'Zama, a man without a genome. Even as a Jinchuriki and possessing the Keki Genkai, he could not hold out. Although understandable, Kai'Zama is a very powerful shinobi. But this strong shinobi also lost to Might Guy. What else is there? Leafing through all the tasks, Shikamaru could only smile. The list was quite long. There were even tasks in which he was sure to complete. The task of becoming a genin, of learning different jutsu, it was all good. But at the moment it is not possible yet. Genin's strength was one such mission. It was necessary to improve some indicators and master any style of taijutsu. 5,000 points for that, good rewards. I'll definitely buy the pedigree, but I'll do it at night. So far, this is the only task I can complete. Although, if you buy an elixir. Looking at a good task, Shikamaru pondered. The power of bloodline. Raise one pedigree, up to 400%. Reward, 10,000 points, bloodline stabilization pill. Concentrating on the unknown pill, Shikamaru began reading the information about it. Pill of bloodline stabilization, completely stabilizes the bloodline strength in the body of the adopted person up to 50%. The minimum level for stabilization is not less than 20% of the bloodline strength. If several bloodlines are present in the body, the one with a higher percentage is stabilized. If the bloodline is above 50% or below 20%, the pill has no effect. After reading the description, Shikamaru was again surprised by this system and its capabilities. This was another incredible medicine. In exchange, this pill was worth only 500 points, but its effect is amazing. Take Shikamaru now and his bloodline will stabilize at 50% instead of 32%. The gain is small compared to the pedigree enhancement pill. But this is not its true effect. Essentially, it needs to be taken just before strengthening in order to boost future growth. Without this pill, with his 32% bloodline strength, after taking the enhancement pill, Shikamaru will receive only 232%, and after the next enhancement, 332. Ultimately, after 4 pills, his bloodline strength barely crosses the 400% line. But if he takes the stabilization pill, then after 4 boosts in a row, he will receive 425%. Only 18%, but he can only get it if he takes the stabilization pill at the beginning of his journey. Having strengthened at least once, he will forever lose this interest, and in fact 18% in the Nara bloodline, will give 3% in the management of yin. Well, 3% is better than nothing at all. If I hadn't looked through the assignments, I might not have learned about this pill. So do not rush and clearly study all the drugs before acting. Even if I forget most, it will still be useful to study everything with these thoughts. Shikamaru decided to postpone the assignments, and began to study all the drugs in the exchange. Thus, a couple of hours passed unnoticed. After an afternoon checkup, the doctor and nurse left. After looking after them, Shikamaru smiled. Great, this is much better than I expected. Realizing that Shikamaru's condition is quite good, the doctor did not delay him for a long time and was ready to discharge him. He will be watched for another 3 days, and he will finally be free. I was also pleased that the smell in the ward completely disappeared, and no one noticed anything. Plus, Shikamaru was able to ask for a bucket and a mop. Of course, the doctor was surprised at such a request, but Shikamaru was able to find an excuse, citing his cleanliness, and a desire to do something. The doctor did not see this as a problem and agreed. This way the guy was able to sort out a few upcoming problems. Rejoicing at the good news, Shikamaru continued to study all the pills, elixirs, and bloodlines. While he had a desire to see the entire exchange, he quickly dismissed the idea when he saw a huge list of techniques. There were so many of them that the guy was sure that this was impossible to remember. In the future, of course, he was ready to run his eyes over them, but not now. Perhaps only Taijutsu and then superficially. Late at night, when most of the people in Lister village were asleep, Shikamaru opened his eyes and breathed out in relief. Finally. I really thought it would never end. Looking around in the dark room, the boy could only smile. Time flew by very quickly. Basically, everything he learned was really helpful. Shikamaru was even able to devote time to the Taijutsu techniques he was about to learn. After strengthening his body, his status changed slightly, so he decided to focus on Taijutsu for the first time. He also decided on his first pedigree, and then on the genome. The first thing to do was, of course, take a stabilization pill. Although he will receive it for the tasks of taking power pills, but then it will already be useless, so it was worth taking it right away. It cost 500 points, so it was enough for him. In the future, he may well find a use for it. Focusing on the bloodline stabilization pill, Shikamaru mentally selected it in the system and at the exchange point, and then mentally confirmed the request. As soon as this happened, 500 system points were immediately written off, and then a dim red light flew out of Shikamaru's body again. Stopping a few centimeters from the boy's face, the light quickly began to change its shape. In just a couple of seconds, the glow went out, and a small yellow ball with brown splashes formed in the air. This pill was similar to the regular pill that Akimichi uses. As it formed from this strange energy, Shikamaru reached out and grabbed the pill. This time, he didn't swallow it right away. First of all, he opened the window in the ward, and then undressed. After that, he sat down in the corner of the room, looked at the pill and put it in his mouth with a quick motion. Without chewing, he swallowed it instantly. The medicine had absolutely no taste, like an ordinary plastic ball. But as soon as it got into the stomach, the ball immediately began to slowly disintegrate and release a strange yellow energy. Shikamaru quickly felt warmth inside his abdomen, and then slight discomfort all over his body. He felt an unusual movement begin under his skin. Chakra canals. Feeling them for the first time, the boy smiled excitedly. Before that, he could not figure out how to do it. Although he did not try to interact with the chakra, he felt it inside himself. Just before that, he did not understand at all how to use it, how to establish a connection with the chakra canals, and interact with them. Now, having felt the energy flowing through them, he began to realize a little how to connect with them. When the pill finally dissolved completely, Shikamaru grimaced slightly. At first everything was quite normal, but then all this energy began to penetrate into every cell of the body, which brought slight pain. Of course, this was incomparable to the pain of the elixir's effect of strengthening the body. But not bad either, and this is a simple stabilization pill. Probably, the pain from the enhancement pill will be many times stronger. When it finally stopped, Shikamaru let out a sigh of relief. I hope my body can handle the rest of the changes. I didn't even think about my limits, so I should be careful. Perhaps I am in pain due to being too weak. Hopefully I can handle it. I doubt the system will kill me with its drugs. This shouldn't have happened. There were several illegal drugs in exchange. If these were dangerous, they would probably also be closed. Although Shikamaru did not have a very great understanding of the system, he was sure she would not harm him like that. It would just be pointless. This time Shikamaru only sweated slightly, but otherwise everything was fine. He even slightly cheered up from these sensations. Concentrating, Shikamaru decided to look at the results of his actions, and at the same time find out the results of the recently taken elixir. Status. Name, Shikamaru Nara. Age, 4 years. Faction, Nara Clan, Hidden Leaf Village. Ninja rank, none. Strength, 25, Stamina, 28, Speed, 20. Talent, 18, Chakra size, 40, Chakra control, 15. Pedigree. Nara, strength 50%, improved mastery of the element yin, 10%. Improved genome, absent. Elements. Earth release 25%. Fire release 6%. Yin release 40%. Technique, none. As expected, the changes have taken place. Strength, endurance and speed have more than doubled, but of course this will not always happen. If the elixir always doubled the body, then this elixir would certainly not be worth 1,000 points. This elixir is very good, but for some people it will be useless. Might Guy, for example, after adopting it, probably won't feel much change. This elixir strengthens the existing indicators, but there are also limitations. The elixir is only useful up to 300 points in strength, stamina and speed. Of course, it not only increases the numbers, its main benefit is in changing the body itself. It will take months and years for the common man to build strength, speed and endurance. This elixir allows you to increase the talent to increase these indicators. Roughly speaking, the elixir of strengthening the body can raise your talent for taijutsu, changing your body and making it more receptive to training. It is for this reason that it is worth 1,000 points. We can say that the increase in performance is just a bonus. At the moment, Shikamaru can take no more than 4 of these body-strengthening elixirs. It is not known why, but these restrictions at the exchange point appeared on the elixir, after its adoption. Maybe its age or something else. But even so, until the 3 indicators exceed 100 points, after each portion of the elixir, they will almost double, and this is quite significant. Of course, Shikamaru had no such idea to spend points on this elixir. At least not now. Moreover, after 100 points, it will not be so effective, and reaching 300, the gains will be ridiculous. The body's talent for stress and taijutsu can be obtained without elixirs. A truly terrible elixir, this is an improved version of this, Essence Fortification Special Elixir. This is what truly defies the heavens and can make any taijutsu master envy. Unfortunately, its price is as terrible as its effect. Discarding the elixir, Shikamaru noticed changes in talent, volume and chakra control as well. Probably this is also the result of the elixir. Well, it is possible to increase the strength of the bloodline. This is not excluded. Compatibility with Yin overcame 40%, and the pedigree was fixed at exactly 50. It was pleasing to the eye, but Shikamaru knew this was just the beginning. In these 2 indicators, there were 2 tasks and a lot of fate points. The first quest was behind the mark Yin 50%, the second quest behind the pedigree of 400%. Also, for raising one element to 100, there was also a quest with a good reward. The system was very generous with quests, which was undoubtedly pleasing. But it was just the beginning, it will definitely be more difficult in the future. Focusing again on quests, Shikamaru had already decided what to do next. The first thing he started with was that he ended up spending 8,000 points on pedigree boost pills. Each pill cost 2,000, but the guy was sure of the correctness of his purchase. In the end, he only had 1,500 points left on his account. This only lifted Shikamaru's spirits as he smiled and held 4 dark red balls in his hands. The pedigree enhancement pills looked almost the same as the stabilization pill, just a different color. Holding them in his hands, Shikamaru felt a slight heat from them and a dormant power within. He was sure one such pill could completely change the life of any shinobi. But he had 4 of them, what can come of it? Will he become one of those heroes with terrifying strength as a child? Well, I don't mind at all, so let's check. Chuckling, Shikamaru quickly swallowed one pill and put the others aside. He had the idea to swallow them all at once, but he did not risk it. Who knows what one such thing will do? This increase is not just 20%, but as much as 200. It would be nice to stay alive at all. Chuckling at his thoughts, Shikamaru waited for the pill to work. She had no taste, but the burning sensation on her tongue remained. He just felt with all his gut that this night would be terribly difficult. Perhaps, in this he was wrong. Difficult, that's putting it mildly. The effect of the drug was not long in coming. This time, there was no gentle warmth passing through the chakrokans. The pill instantly melted without even reaching the stomach, and then, all its energy immediately, in a huge wave, passed through Shikamaru's body. Shikamaru opened his eyes in horror and let out a restrained cry, quickly clenched his teeth and closed his mouth. His entire body inside seemed to be burned with magma, the guy's entire skin instantly turned blood red. After which, Shikamaru began to twitch. He tried to keep his limbs normal, but nothing came of it. His body started shaking violently and then he completely lost control of it. All he could do was resign himself and gritting his teeth, writhing in pain, completely losing control of his body. Fortunately, after a couple of minutes, he completely lost his sensitivity and just froze, lying on the floor and looking at the ceiling. But, even though his eyes were open, he had long ago lost consciousness. Every part of his body pulsed and changed. If someone with a Bakugan came here, he would be amazed at what is happening in Shikamaru's body. All his tanketsu were ablaze, and an incomprehensible energy passed through the whole body, washing every cell of the body. But at the same time, she did not destroy him, but simply irradiated him with her power. Deep inside, in every cell, Shikamaru's bloodline slowly grew rich and stronger. The percentages of her strength rose by leaps and bounds. From 50, she quickly went to 60, after which she immediately crossed the limit of 100%. Approaching 180%, the energy in Shikamaru's body began to slowly weaken, and the temperature dropped. But although his condition began to change, Shikamaru still arrived unconscious. After a few more minutes, the bloodline's power percentage finally reached 243%, after which Shikamaru's body slowly began to brighten. The temperature began to drop, and the strength percentages finally reached 250. So the whole pill was finally reworked. All that remains is a body emitting faint vapor. Under Shikamaru, a lake of sweat once again formed and everything finally ended. After a couple of hours, Shikamaru jumped up. Hara! Ko! After clearing his throat a little, Shikamaru quickly got up and drank a glass of water. His eyes were still red and his hands were shaking a little. Damn, it was awful. I don't even really remember how I went through it. It was the worst day of my life, that's for sure. My body still aches, and my head is cracking. Looking at several fruits in a vase, Shikamaru immediately began to eat. Hunger was awakened along with thirst. Slightly satisfying his appetite, the guy looked painfully at the remaining pills. Looking at them, he again had unpleasant memories. Why couldn't it have been easier? Exhaling a long breath, Shikamaru took the second pill. There was nothing to do, he had to accept it. He was sure that it would be easier with her than with the first, yet the increase in strength is not so noticeable. Returning to the corner of the room, and sitting in the same place, the guy leaned the pill to his mouth and muttered with his eyes closed. I hope it will be easier now. With a grin, Shikamaru quickly swallowed the pill. The effect was not long in coming. Unfortunately, the boy's hopes did not come true. Gritting his teeth, he embarked on a long and one of the most terrible nights of his life. Payback for strength and luck comes sooner or later, it was one of those cases. ******. Several hours later. As the sun rose over the List village, in the corner of his room, Shikamaru opened his tortured eyes once again. This time he was awakened completely through the whole process of assimilating the last pill. Grimacing slightly from the bright sun, the guy covered his eyes with his hand. Although he had increased his strength, Shikamaru looked terribly tired now. Pale skin, red eyes and slightly quivering lips. Only fatigue and a distinct desire to rest were read in his gaze. This night was really not an easy one. He thought that the first pill would be the worst, but unfortunately he was very wrong. The third was the worst of all. After accepting the second, he passed out again, so the whole process was not so memorable. The pain certainly lasted longer, but he stood it. But after taking the third pill, the worst period of amplification came. Having accepted it, he did not lose consciousness as he hoped. He fully experienced everything. Most importantly, although the pain was not terribly intense due to Shikamaru being stronger, it was terribly long. It was very difficult to endure this for several hours. In the past, he faced different types of pain, bullet, knife, many types of wounds. He was not even lucky enough to get a terrible burn of hot oil. But all this pain was terrible, but not so long and excruciating. When something changes from within you and is irradiated with burning energy, the sensations are disgusting. Fortunately, the last pill was, one might say, very gentle and rather brought a little discomfort. But this is not surprising, having gone through all this. In the future, it is likely that Shikamaru will find it easier to survive other enhancements. Sighing in relief, Shikamaru got up and walked towards the exit of the room. The water had long run out, all he now wanted was to wash and drink. Not even caring about the huge pool of sweat on the floor and missing clothes, barely moving his feet on the floor, the guy wandered to the toilet. When he reached the right place, he immediately leaned over to the sink. Splash. After rinsing his face several times, Shikamaru looked in the mirror and grinned wryly. A terrible sight. A swollen face, blackened bruises under the eyes and many ruptured blood vessels. The guy's face was like after a long and terrible binge. While there was an opportunity, Shikamaru lightly rinsed his entire body. Unfortunately, there was no soul here, but that should be enough. Strengthening the bloodline did not strengthen the body itself, so there wasn't much sweat. And the smell was much better than before. After washing and drawing some water, Shikamaru returned to the room, dressed and began to clean up after himself. All this took him no more than an hour, and finally having finished with it, the guy was completely exhausted and fell exhausted. He slept in this state for almost a whole day and woke up only the next night. Even the doctor who came for the examination could not wake him up. But after making sure that the guy was not in danger, he left, blaming everything on fatigue after a serious illness. Yoshino was also unable to wake her son up, and she had no choice but to leave the food and leave. Waking up in the middle of the night, Shikamaru slowly opened his eyes and yawned, and then suddenly froze. Raising his hand in shock, he clenched his hand into a fist several times and twisted it in surprise. Everything was completely different from the past. Yesterday he did not attach any importance to it, but now, with a fresh mind, Shikamaru felt everything. Amazing. Slowly getting out of bed, Shikamaru took a fresh look at the world. Everything seemed different, even the feeling of energy inside the body, which was almost non-existent in the past, was very noticeable. Of course, he did not quite understand what kind of energy it was calm, slow and incomprehensible. How strange, was she always there? It seems that this is the yin element, cold and calm. Spiritual energy that allows you to create a form from nothingness. Concentrating on his own mind, Shikamaru tried to interact with this force. But, unfortunately, he didn't do much. He felt with his body that Inton reacted, but nothing else happened. Shikamaru was definitely missing something. Not too surprised, the guy nodded. I need a method of interaction and control. With a simple wave of my hand and the power of thought, I will definitely not achieve anything, no matter how strong my compatibility with yin is. Moreover, what am I even hoping for? I just increased my bloodline power, thus increasing yin compatibility, but the amount of spiritual energy probably didn't change much. Now my yin techniques will be stronger, and perhaps I will have more spiritual energy than others. But all this will happen in the future. Now I haven't really increased anything, My energy is almost at the same level, sort of like. Maybe it only increased a little, not more, which means that I only increased my potential. Thinking about the ability to create something out of nothing using the yin element. Shikamaru, of course, remembered the yang element, which allows you to create life when combined with yin. He just didn't quite understand how it worked right now. He remembered that in the anime, yin and yang formed chakra by merging. But looking at this now, being a real ninja, the guy had a lot of questions. If yin and yang form chakra, how is the power of the Sage of the Six Paths to be explained? Or the power of the Great Tree? Did Hagoromo have a special chakra? Was it similar to the chakra of today's people? Sighing, Shikamaru simply shook his head. It doesn't matter now, I'll start small, and then I'll understand how everything works. Having good yin compatibility is also good. Genjutsu alone is dependent on the yin element. So Shikamaru should definitely do them, definitely better than others. True, he didn't really want to focus attention on them. Okay, what about the assignments? 2 assignments have long been considered completed. Good compatibility. Reach an affinity with one of the elements 50%. Reward 5,000 points, Elixir of Enhancing Elements, random. Perfect compatibility. Reach affinity with one of the elements 100%. Reward 10,000 points, a pill to cleanse the body from toxins, a grade B technique scroll. Moreover, since the 2 tasks were completed very quickly and at the same time, the system issued a special reward. Special reward for both quests, 6,500 points, 2 random pills and 1 elixir. Seeing this award, Shikamaru only chuckled wryly. In fact, special awards should be truly special. But in this case, the system seemed to know that a similar situation could happen and the awards were reduced for some reason. The system should definitely help Shikamaru, but it should also issue rewards fairly. Otherwise, there would be no point in assignments. I don't understand the reasons, but maybe the system is not just encouraging my actions. I increase my strength, I will be rewarded. But if the promotion is too fast, and points are earned at high speed, it can even be harmful. Who knows? Smiling, Shikamaru was not particularly worried. Getting 23,000 points was an incredible reward, and in fact he spent only 8,000 on everything. Moreover, that was not all. The power of bloodline. Raise 1 pedigree, up to 400%. Reward, 10,000 points, bloodline stabilization pill. Special reward, 2,000 points, 3 Akimichi and Kurama clan Haijutsu. Great, 35,000 is worth something. Now I can quite use them properly. With a satisfied nod, Shikamaru was finally satisfied. He managed to get almost the maximum out of his current position. With new points, he will be able to get a little more, and on top of that, he will be able to acquire a quite good genome. But now he didn't even think about it. Still, taking the pills is one thing, but getting a new pedigree and a genome is quite another. Who knows what test he will have to pass during the assimilation of power. He had already experienced the effects of the pills, and the genetic alteration would definitely be unpleasant. So he decided to wait and be discharged from the hospital and give his body time to rest. He has already received enough from the system, it is worthwhile to wait and look around in Konoha. Okay, what is there in terms of status? An increase in some indicators can help with the next task. Thinking about this, Shikamaru immediately gave the command to open the status. Name, Shikamaru Nara. Age, 4 years. Faction, Nara clan. Hidden Leaf Village. Ninja rank, none. Strength, 30, Stamina, 35, Speed, 23. Talent, 80, Chakra amount, 50, Chakra control, 23. Pedigree. Nara, Strength 425%, Improved Mastery of the Element Yin, 85%. Improved Genome, absent. Elements. Earth release 28%. Fire release 9%. Yin release 115%. Technique, none. Ha, that's what I understand. The status has really changed. Shikamaru was already pretty close to completing 2 tasks. But this will definitely take more time. Under current conditions, he could complete only 2 tasks, only to obtain the first genome and obtain the first pedigree. Otherwise, even after picking up the reward and learning the jutsu, he will not be able to complete tasks related to techniques until he can apply them. A simple rule of thumb, but quite effective. But, the reward for these quests is not that great, so Shikamaru didn't bother. What really interested him now was the strange yin percentages. Logically, 100 should be the maximum, but apparently, this is not even the limit. It is not clear how this worked, so it was questionable. Maybe 100% is taken as a unit of an ordinary person's capabilities. Having surpassed 100 means crossing this limit. Thoughtfully scratching his chin, Shikamaru was not sure. Yet about chakra and everything else, he only knew superficial information. The yin element represents spiritual energy, that's all he knew. The main thing is that this does not cause problems in the body, and I have to cope with the rest. Nodding calmly, Shikamaru brought up the task window again and selected several new ones. As soon as he completed the 3 past, several new ones immediately opened to him. Path of the Elements. Reach control in at least 3 elements 50%. Transformation Wizard. Achieve control in at least 3 elements 100%. The Power of the Elements. Achieve complete control of all 5 elements. Rewards, 30,000 points, a pill to completely fuse the 3 elements, a special scroll. The rewards were very tempting, but it was very difficult to complete these tasks. The first one is still possible, but the rest. Definitely, for a few more years Shikamaru will not come close to completing them. The new pedigree assignments were even more difficult. Alien Blood. Raise 5 bloodlines, up to 400%. Reward, 15,000 points, a bloodline enhancement pill, a scroll of 10 random A-class technicians. The Power of the Bloodline. Increase 12 pedigrees, up to 440%. Reward, hidden. The first task was very difficult at first glance, but compared to the second, it was too simple. If you count, then the first task will require no more than 100,000 points, but the second, more than twice. Especially when you consider that there are not many cheap pedigrees in the system, and the pills are not cheap. Given that they will have to buy almost twice as many, to increase the pedigree from 425 to 440. In general, the tasks for the future are quite amusing. But, Shikamaru didn't care much about it and quietly shut them down. He had enough glasses now, and there was no point in looking so far. It is worth first studying the world, understanding the chakra, gaining ground in Konoha, and only then thinking about the future and your path in this world. As morning was approaching, Shikamaru decided to eat a little. He hasn't eaten properly since he came to this world. So it was worth finally fixing it, and doing simple human things, without a system, chakra and other problematic things. Taking a bite of his bun with pleasure, Shikamaru began to devour his delicious breakfast. The next few days were as boring as possible. The doctor came for an examination, and as always, he did not notice anything usual. Still, Shikamaru had no external changes. Maybe, of course, his muscles got a little stronger, but this was not so striking. No pill can replace real training, Shikamaru was convinced of this. Maybe he wanted to get pedigrees and saw his path very bright thanks to them. He also did not forget about the problems inherent in this path. Probably, if he quickly increased his abilities, then reaching the level of Knin even before the academy is quite possible. There were many geniuses capable of this. Even in the original, Shikamaru could well have achieved this strength if he trained harder and was not lazy. But that wasn't what worried him at all. The main problem that the guy will have to face is a lot of questions in the future. For example, the first and main question is, where did you get the Bakugan? Or, where did you get Shikatsumiyaku? Uzumaki's pedigree will be difficult to determine, unless of course the hair turns red, but the previous two are quite. This was what worried Shikamaru. Kaguya's pedigree is still quite bearable. He could blame everything on some kind of mutation, and the clan could completely protect him from a heap of analyses, probably. Shikatsumiyaku would certainly have attracted attention, but that might well be accepted. But what about the Bakugan? Do not forget that in the village of Lister there is a whole clan of these big-eyed, which for certain will not be satisfied with such an alignment. It will be easy to prove that Shikamaru is not of their clan, but how to explain the presence of the Bakugan? Eye transplant. Killing a member of the Hyuga clan. I think questions will arise, and how, who knows what one of the noble clans of Konoha may require. What if they want to deprive the guy of his eyes or just try to kill? The Nara would certainly not allow this. But one action by Shikamaru could cause an unpleasant conflict. Unfortunately, no matter how he thought about it, he could not find a normal solution. Although he had hopes for a similar incident with Imawari, he could not be sure about it. The girl had a Bakugan hidden, and it was unrealistic to understand that she possessed it. But Shikamaru's situation was different. As soon as he bought the pedigree, it is not known how it would work. On top of that, he couldn't do without the Bakugan. His plan was to become a true Taijutsu master using these eyes in conjunction with Shikatsumiyaku. Of course, he was not going to forget about ninjutsu, just the Bakugan attracted him quite strongly. Yes, and the glasses in the future could definitely be enough for him, and he was less problematic than the Sharingan with his awakening. Basically, all the powers of interest to him, one way or another, were noticeable, and this annoyed. Oh, a continuous headache. Sitting in the courtyard of his new house, the guy tried to comprehend everything. The Nara clan's courtyard was quite large. The entire clan was located on the outskirts of the village, next to many forests. So, sitting in the backyard, Shikamaru had the most wonderful view and the purest smell of nature. The forest was not even fenced off, so a place for training was quickly found for them. A little further off, there was a small training ground for throwing kunai and shuriken. Several wooden swords and makiwara. Not far from them, there was a large paddock surrounded by forest. In this corral, there were a dozen calmly munching grass animals. Of course, these were deer, one of the main occupations of the Nara clan and a historically formed profession. Even their techniques were developed specifically to capture these beautiful animals. Of course, they were not locked, they could easily have gone back to the forest, where their main house was. The Nara clan's duty was precisely to protect and breed them. but most of the deer were tame, so they liked to come here to eat specially prepared food for them. Standing up, Shikamaru slowly walked over to the sicker deer and with a smile stroked its small, barely appeared horns. Then, he took some herbs and fed him. This activity was quite relaxing, so Shikamaru stayed there for a long time. The house itself where he lived was built in the usual Japanese style and had many rooms. Still, the head of the clan's housing is not small. Near his home were the homes of other clan members. But Shikamaru did not yet understand how the entire structure of the Nara works and how the clan generally operated and what responsibilities he had. Having ruled a group in the past, he certainly knew that it was worth paying attention to his clan. After all, one way or another, Hashirama may have united different ethnic groups into a single group, but the clans, first of all, will protect their own. Although, thanks to the will of fire and the teachings of the ninja, this may not happen. Especially now, when so many generations have changed. When Shikamaru was discharged, his mother immediately took him away. His father was still on assignment and he still hasn't seen him. But, the guy was not worried, he was actually even a little happy. Still, Shikaku was an intelligent ninja, so you shouldn't cross with him once again. But, he's his father, so one day it will happen. Yes, and Shikamaru will still have a difficult conversation with his father one day. Whether he wants it or not, he just needs the protection of others for the first time. At the hospital, he had already thought through some story about his abilities and changes. The main thing is that everything works. Shikamaru didn't care about the Hyuga or other power-hungry people. There was only one person he worried about who could really cause a lot of trouble. The only one in the village who could well find a way to let the new genius experiment. This man could well cover up his affairs, with his standard, all for the sake of Konoha. But Shikamaru had formed some opinion about this old man long ago. He may not be like that in this world, but in the manga he was selfish and often liked to justify his actions by protecting Konoha. Dan's was dangerous not so much because of his root and his experience, but as a Sharingan of Shisui Uchiha. Kotomatsu Kami could cause a lot of problems. And the guy remembered that this head of the root could well have used it more than 10 years old. Stroking the deer thoughtfully, Shikamaru muttered. He's dangerous, but something's wrong here. If he had such strong eyes, why didn't he become Hokage in the manga? Yes, even if not the Hokage, couldn't he just subdue the same Orochimaru or other Kage? After pondering the power of those eyes, Shikamaru made several assumptions. First, Dan's, like any Mangeki user, goes blind. But thinking about his cells, the guy immediately shook his head. Perhaps Dan's was able to bypass this limit. It is difficult to judge how Hashirama's cells work. Even if he goes blind, it still doesn't explain why he didn't use them then. Also, there is a possibility that Kotomatsu Kami simply does not work quite the way everyone thinks. Perhaps the principle of its operation is completely different. And the last thing, it may be that Dan simply cannot reveal all the powers of the Uchiha's eyes. Perhaps his brain simply cannot handle and cannot create complex genjutsu, but just something small and insignificant. Also, Dan's only has one eye, which could reduce his effectiveness. There were many ideas, so it was difficult to understand which one was correct. But Shikamaru knew for sure that the old man had either just received those eyes or he would very soon receive. Well, he could already have Hashirama's cells. He was dangerous anyway. Even without Sharingan, this old man can cause problems. It was hard to call Dan's a really evil character. But these were the people Shikamaru did not like the most. The whole policy of the hidden villages was evil and failed, and people like Dan's made things even worse. But the politics of this world is a separate topic. Although Shikamaru had some understanding, he did not dare to judge yet. Strength is important, but so is knowledge. So it was worthwhile to study everything in more detail. Without thinking about Dan's, Shikamaru quickly stopped worrying. The old man may have been dangerous, but remembering his cowardly escape from Sajuk, only disdain came to Shikamaru's face. His selfishness and fear of death, which he justified by the desire to protect the village, clearly reflected his essence. To be afraid of such a snake, of course, was worth it, but to be afraid, definitely not. Moreover, if his eyes were so dangerous, he would not have lost so miserably. It's the real world though, so who knows what will happen. You must always be ready. There will certainly be too many problems in the future. With a sigh, Shikamaru turned around and walked back into the house. Well, if I had no problems, it would be too easy. With an inward laugh, Shikamaru looked up and immediately stopped. As if out of nowhere, a tall man appeared in front of him. Scars on his face, tied hair in a ponytail. Shikamaru smiled and waved his hand. Father. Ha, I see you are already healthy guy. Yes, this morning, my mother took me. Smiling, Shikamaru began to walk towards his father. Where have you been? Shikaku smiled and sat down on the wood floor, placing a wooden shogi board in front of him. I am an advisor to the Hokage, I have a lot of work. Sitting opposite his father, Shikamaru frowned at the board. He had heard of shogi, but the rules of the game were unknown to him. Noticing his son's gaze, Shikaku chuckled and asked. What? Forgot how to play? Sorry. The guy smiled guiltily. I don't remember much, but I feel strange. Strange. Shikaku seriously looked at his son and asked again. Do you have a pain? Or maybe? No, Shikamaru shook his head and said, it's hard to explain, but I feel strange in myself. Sometimes I get angry, like in the hospital when my mother wanted to detain me there. It's hard to explain. I just don't know what's going on. Shikamaru had prepared such a story beforehand. Yet very soon he will have a lot of unusual abilities. So blaming your unusual and strange behavior as something unknown was a good option to hide your origin. Even future abilities and talent can be attributed to an incomprehensible strength that appeared after an illness. Still, Shikaku is his father and in some matters, he, like his mother, will be too blind when it comes to his own son. The lies may have been wrong, but it was about survival. So Shikamaru quite calmly resorted to it. Hearing his son's words, Shikaku nodded glumly. Although he noticed some oddity in his son. But he still could not explain the reasons for all this. After spreading out the shogi pieces, Shikaku made the first move. If you don't understand what's going on, then can you tell me how you feel? Shikamaru looked over the figures and finally, focusing on one, moved it at random. It's hard to explain, but I feel like I have become stronger, especially my body, it is now much lighter than in the past. Well, also, I began to feel a strange power inside. Give me your hand. Taking his son's hand, Shikaku closed his eyes and tried to feel something, spreading his chakra. But then he opened his eyes and muttered. How strange. What's strange? Releasing his son's hand, Shikaku made the second move and said. It's hard to say, everyone in our clan has a similar chakra signature. Especially with you and me, as we are father and son. But your chakra, a little unusual. This is definitely the chakra of our clan, it just changed from the time I touched you. But, I'm not a censor, so I can't say much. In his heart, Shikamaru exhaled with relief, but outwardly made a dejected face. I see. Oh, father, will you teach me the techniques of the clan? I'm all ready. Shikaku smiled after hitting his forehead. Right, you've lost your memory. Well, in the past, I've shown you the simplest technique. Standing up, Shikaku waved his hand. Come on, we still won't be able to play, it looks like you will have to be taught again. Approaching the training ground, Shikaku stood in front of Shikamaru and said, Okay, come closer, I'll explain everything to you again. Shikamaru nodded and immediately ran to his father. So, just one technique, no more. Usually, our children begin to teach just at your age, but here is your mother, Shikaku said quietly, glancing cautiously towards the house. She insisted that you not train yet. After all, you are after the hospital. So no words to her, understand? After a positive nod from his son, Shikaku smiled and slowly began to fold the seals. Watch your hands and repeat. Aha! Shikamaru began to slowly repeat his father's movements and fold his fingers correctly. Already on the 10th try, Shikaku began to accelerate, and Shikamaru kept up. When both started folding seals very quickly, Shikaku finally waved his hand and stopped. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel. Also make sure you tell me your recommendation in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching.